Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 529 Able Solutions webinar series. We're pleased to have you join us today for our April webinar. My name is Mary Kriegfeld. I'm on the ISS Market Intelligence Marketing team and will be moderating today's webinar. We have Paul Curley, Director of Savings Research at ISS Market Intelligence, and our 529 Able Solutions team. Paul will present a legislative update today, including analysis on the Secure Act and overview of the expansion of qualified distributions to K through 12. If you have any questions during this session, please submit them through the question section in the Zoom panel. This can be found by clicking on the Q&A icon shown on this slide. We'll do our best to address all questions at the end of the presentation. However, if we do run out of time, we will follow up with you directly. I will now hand the presentation over to Paul.
Thank you, Mary, and much appreciated. Also, I'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar. It's much appreciated. Thank you for the support and collaboration. Last month, we really focused on a 529 primer where it was a lot more training, educational, CE in nature. But today we're going to start with our monthly webinar series where we're going to be talking a little bit more about what's going on in the month, what are the updates since the prior month, and then also provide some training and oversight as well. Today we're going to talk about a legislative update. Next month, we'll be talking about the 529 day, really top 10 trends of 529 and ABLE accounts. And then the following week, we'll provide a product overview, 529 and ABLE. And of course, the goal is to really just sort of provide that product training, provide that show the love and support for 529 and ABLE, help the industry grow. And in the meantime, thank you for the support. So today we're going to talk about industry announcements. We're going to provide industry announcements every single month, going forward for those next 3 month sessions. We're also going to provide an update on data and research updates. And then today we're going to focus a little bit more on 529 and ABLE legislative updates. And of course, as we did with last month, we're going to close out with a question and answer session. And before we jump in, we just wanted to do a quick poll for the audience to see how you are, what is your relationship to the 529 market? And we'll provide 30 seconds to respond to all N. And we'll just wait 10 more seconds and then we'll present the results. And Mary, can we take a look? So we have a good breakout between the financial advisors, broker-dealer home offices, the product providers and distributors, but also in state agencies and treasury departments, but also in other categories as well. It's great to get all the different parts of the industry and the entire ecosystem on these calls to get a update from all the different perspectives. So thank you so much and for the feedback, for the interaction, and thank you for the poll, Mary. It's great that we can get that one going. I look forward to using it more going forward. And as a quick industry announcement, we are on plan and scheduling for the 529 conference 2020. We're currently creating the agenda. The 529 Essentials agenda has been created for the speaker lineup and the topics. We're currently creating out the agenda for the 529 conference and ABLE Summit. And for more information, please go to the website at 529conference.com. Thank you. Before we jump in as well, in terms of other industry announcements, do want to provide a couple of quick updates. There is the first one, Industry People on the Move, and we had a recent announcement from Ascensus, who recently appointed Kevin Cox as head of retirement and Peg Creani as head of government savings. As a quick note, Kevin, congratulations, and he's a fellow Boston College graduate, so great to see the eagle fly high. And Peg Creani, thank you for presenting at last year's 529 conference. I'm sure she will do a great job. She's a great leader, very insightful, and definitely a great friend to the industry. So I appreciate both of their updates. A quick note on the in our 529 Insiders, we've been updating a roundup article on market volatility and coronavirus. Basically how the different 529 product providers and distributors have been announcing their disclosures, different items. As a quick side note, we've actually started to see plan disclosure agreements to be updated with 1 page, 2 page updates on the impact of coronavirus. But lo and behold, from a business continuity perspective, the 529 plans continue to march on. Some of the mailings and disclosures, some of the mailings are just taking a little bit longer given some of the work from home arrangements. But lo and behold, the industry continues on. The business continuity is great, and we appreciate the ongoing disclosures and updates. And we've also seen for the Social Security Administration, they had a recent release and just reconfirming that the COVID-19 economic payments, are not, impacting the eligibility for the SSI recipients, and so they had a great release about that. If you have any other updates, for future webinars, please let me know, and happy to work it in. Two other industry announcement product updates. College Invest, recently changed up, some of their program manager over to Nationwide. As a long time New England Patriots fan, it's great to see Peyton Manning in the Nationwide ads. And if Peyton Manning can't get us to the goal line for college financial planning, it's tough to say who will or could. PC 529, it's great to see that they've made the adjustment for their plan. That's actually been completed. It says that it will change, but the change has been made for the record keepers from Invesco to Intuition. So those are the updates, industry announcements for the month. And from a data research perspective, we're very close to finalizing our first quarter 2020 numbers, and lo and behold, a lot of what we're seeing for the first quarter 2020, the assets line up to or perhaps slightly lower than the first quarter 2019. So not a dramatic impact on assets. There is market volatility, but lo and behold, it is within sort of very recent range, and it was not intentional, but that it looks like a very flat asset curve from that from the way we're presenting the data there. But again, that's great to see. We will be interested in seeing how the second quarter numbers do work out. We've heard a lot of different news, even the Federal Reserve announcement yesterday about some of the potential gross contribution impacts to the broader industry overall. But we'll see where that lands then, and look forward to continuing the webinars going forward so we can release that data. But in the meantime, just looking at first quarter 2019 to first quarter 2020, we've had very early indication that it was a very strong quarter for the month in terms of rising net flows, which is defined as gross contributions, money coming in, minus gross distributions, money going out. So we've broadly seen some great momentum from a usage perspective for 529 college savings plans, and that makes sense given the long-term nature for the 529 plans and the goals of saving and paying efficiently for college. From a market data perspective, and I just like how this is a very strong, stable sort of perspective of just, broadly speaking, over the long term since 2001 to 2019 and continuing on, that the number of accounts continue to grow, and that basically shows that the rise of more and more families saving efficiently for college using the 529 plans. So lo and behold, as it kind of boils down, despite the volatility, that the long-term growth of usage continues to expand. And when we think about the 2020 volatility, a lot of the way that I've been thinking about it is that this too shall pass. In 2018, definitely in the depths of a more recent market volatility period, obviously very different, but something that we can compare since 529s were really launched, really went live in the more recent time. But lo and behold, looking at 2008, the assets basically doubled, going from 2008, 5 years down the road, and basically tripled after 10 years. So that is something that we can think about, given the market volatility today. And lo and behold, as I kind of think about, even for myself and many families out there, that college financial planning is a very long-term goal. 43% of account beneficiaries are 10 years old or younger, and so a lot of the parents are looking at 529s and college financial planning as a long-term goal. So this more recent market volatility is less impactful than perhaps other product areas. And as a quick note, we do an annual survey of parents every year. We fielded our 2020 survey few weeks ago. That's been completed, and we're working on our 2020 numbers, and we'll be able to compare if there's any types of shifting, going on between, and I think it's roughly our 8th year in a row of doing this, a very year-over-year sort of longitudinal type of analysis. So we'll be able to see if anything, does kind of jump out, looking at 2020 numbers to prior. But lo and behold, again, for the vast majority of 529 account users and target market and clients, this is the more recent market volatility. This period is just a great opportunity to save more, when the markets are compressed, because as we saw in the last slide, that the accounts do grow over the long term. And when we, pivoting over to able market sizing, we're still collecting, we're still analyzing the data, but we've seen, broadly speaking, the usage increase. And when we think about that usage, we're looking at whether it be assets, whether it be accounts, broadly speaking, as a quick, side benchmark, we're just looking at, perhaps that's a 20,000 accounts being opened every single on an annual run rate, going from 20,000 to 40,000 to 63,000. So we've seen able, perhaps even accelerate, that first year, 7,000, increasing 13 to 20 to 23,000 accounts. So we've seen some acceleration in growth in the able accounts, and that aligns with more and more people saving and just understanding the product more. That the longer the product is around, the more positive use cases, the better. Broadly speaking, for able, there's a divide between the amount being saved for short-term goals versus long-term goals, and I think that the success cycle will be much faster in able, because people can put the account in for a fairly short period of time. Let's just say 1 year, and then they take a distribution to pay for a qualified expense, and then all of a sudden, like they see the success work for able accounts. So we'll continue to track it. We'll see how it goes. Average account size continues to grow, and as I learned from Congressman Casey, that $6,000 number is important, because it's 4,000 more than otherwise could be saved above the $2,000 threshold. So it's great to see the growth of able, and we expect that momentum to continue. And part of the reason why we're very confident in the long-term growth for able accounts is all the different legislation that has taken place and is in the pipeline. Currently, one of the focuses for the industry is the Able Age Adjustment Act. Currently, in order to be eligible to use an able account, that there's the onset of their disability has to occur before the age 26, and there's been a lot of great momentum, and co-sponsors being gathered, in terms of getting support on both the Senate bill and the House bill to raise that from 26 to 46. Just looking at the number of co-sponsors, it does seem like there is even a number of co-sponsors in March 2020. So we see continued growth and lengthening of that support, broadly speaking, on both sides of the both sides of Congress. And I think that when we look at other activity, the progress today, able to work, provides the capability to save more with incremental income, by way of working. So if someone works, someone does work, that they're able to save more than the traditional $15,000 allowed to be saved, into the accounts. So that just is, and that's a pretty high level boil down. Of course, look at the details. You have to plan disclosure statements and the IRS filings, but the boil down point is that there is positive progress happening with ABLE. And the ABLE Financial Planning Act is really the ability to roll over 529 assets to ABLE accounts, where the beneficiary to be eligible to open an ABLE account. But that's just one example of the close connection for families and families looking to save efficiently between 529 college savings plans and ABLE accounts. But ongoing and going forward, there's a number of points that ways to reduce the hurdles to get more people to save efficiently with ABLE accounts. And one of the points that is in focus currently is the focus around the Medicaid clawback provisions at the federal and state level. We'll continue to monitor that and report on where that is going. But lo and behold, ABLE accounts have launched, which in and of itself is a success, because it took a long time for the passage of the bill, the implementation, and we're seeing now the continued momentum going forward. And as a quick reminder from our 529 primer last year, one of the items that we focus on in our research is really, the three buckets of people who are not saving at all for college, and that's roughly 41% of parents are not saving. Basically the concept is people are saving for college or not saving for college. Those that are saving, they're either saving with a 529 plan or not a 529 plan. And broadly speaking, what is the legislative proc marketing and distribution enhancements that are available to people to really to get people to go from not saving to saving but not with a 529 plan to a 529 plan to become a 529 plan user, and how to become a power user per se of a 529 plan, whether that be through automatic contributions from one's bank account, from an employer, from gifting, from all these different apps, perhaps during, one time like you're in planning, but there's all these different ways to, make 529 plans more interesting, and the momentum continues. And I bring that up because one of the more recent expansions really, pivots around the expansion of 529s to K through 12 tuition at the federal level. Of course, there's different, state positions on that one, and definitely look at your own state's, plan, but also the different state codes. And we do have a status board on our 529 and STARS website, but at the federal level, 529s have expanded their qualified distributions, to K through 12. And for over a third of those that are just not saving for college at all, that's a material impact that will drive them to start saving efficiently with a 529 plan. And also 86% of those that are saving but not with a 529 plan will be likely to open up a 529 plan now that is capable. For those that are more in the marketing departments, one of the storyboard potential is really the expansion of that concept of college and saving for education, just from that traditional view that 529s are used for college to that K through 12 definition of college as well. So saving for the entire educational route, from whether it be from college, from K through 12 to college, and of course that definition of college also includes the mid-career trainers, mid-career, those that are looking to pivot careers or accelerate their careers, whether it be for an MBA, graduate degree, or anything like that. So it's it really is an interesting piece that goes from saving 5 years old to all the way up to that there's a lot of many people go to grad school late in life as well, which is great news. And as a quick side note, anecdotally from a storyboard perspective, there's also the for those that are potentially unemployed now, that they can use that 529 assets to retrain and retool for their own career enhancement as well. Expansion of 529 qualified distributions to K through 12 tuition. There's probably two kind of steps as we look at that as well. One is to basically say, are you aware of it? Only 88% of 529 users are aware of that. But we really focus on that 20% of non-savers that are basically not aware of this capability. And that's important, that or inversely, there's 80% of non-savers are not aware that one can use a 529 plan to pay for K through 12. And that's important because lo and behold, over a third of those not saving, if they know that they can use 529s to save and pay for K through 12, they're much more likely to save for that short-term goal and the long-term goal, or even both. So basically 23% of those currently not saving for college, were they to know that 529s could be used for K through 12, all of a sudden say hey, let's start saving for both a short-term and a long-term goal. That flexibility is just helpful for the financial advisors as well, as it provides them with more leverage to plan for all the different scenarios, so to add value to their clients. The more recent expansion of 529 plans to apprenticeships, and for this piece, we're really kind of focusing more on it from a data perspective, as opposed to the nitty-gritty details that are involved. And of course, if one wants to dive deep into the IRS code or the plan disclosure statements, plan disclosure statements by the product providers is a great source of information, as is IRS code. But for apprenticeships, we saw a very clear storyboard as well, where it really is something that more recent enhancement. Of course, that's at the federal level. State has different treatment, and we have that link down below to the different status boards. But broadly speaking, the expansion of 529 qualified distributions at the federal level to apprenticeships really does get those that are not saving off the off the bench, if you will, over to all of a sudden start saving efficiently with a 529 plan. And of course, for those saving, but not with a 529 plan, perhaps in a money market or other types of accounts, it's an incentive for them to open up the 529 plan. Same as with a student loan, and based on our calls and feedback with financial advisors, it does have a lot of great, that flexibility to really say, for 529s to be used for saving, paying, and repaying, for college is a great storyboard. Perhaps they want to plan and hold off later to take that distribution to pay off the student loan side, or there's a lot more flexibility. And so broadly speaking, the more flexibility that is provided with 529 plans, the more likely the advisors are to use the 529 plan, which is great. And so we'll continue to track that usage from whether it be our survey of parents, survey of advisors, but also the market data as well, to really see like how much lift these various components are. Lo and behold, as I kind of take a step back, there's obviously been a number of enhancements, and so that's a great storyboard that all these are basically expanding and enhancing the usage of 529 plans, which help people to save efficiently. So it's all different great news. And when we look at that 529 plan side as well, there's so for Idaho, they've also added in 2020 a new state tax employer incentive, which now increases that number from 7 to 8 states that now provide the state tax employer incentive. And we're also looking at the college financial planning employer benefits. Broadly speaking, there's a number of platforms out there that are helping employers to basically contribute and help their employees pay down their student loan debt. For Abbott Labs, they had a private letter ruling, which is what PLR stands for, to really, for that one employer, like help the employer to, help pay off their employees' student loan debt. And of course, the CARES Act has expanded for 1 year that capability from just that one firm to all firms, and there's the limit of 5,250. But broadly speaking, there's been a broadening awareness, usage, interest in the college financial planning employer benefit channel. And this is from a survey that the plan sponsor 2017 survey, which reflects that activity in 2016, just basically the usage of 529s and student loan debt repayment in, broadly speaking, college financial planning benefits in the employer channel. And we'll be looking to see like how this changes over time with all those, with what's happening on the last slide. We're going to take a look and see what's, how things, change. Will more employers add these benefits to their employer package? We broadly think they are. It's a storyboard that's emerging. It's of interest. Broadly speaking, it lines in very well with the overall wellness concepts, that the employers are providing their clients. So we'll continue to track it. We think it's an area of growth, both for product providers, for state agencies, and financial advisors, and plan advisors as well, as is plan sponsors as well, of course, to really just kind of help their employees in that education financial planning cycle. But one topic that we've been seeing more and more is really around the topic of refunds, because if we think about what happened, the spring 2020, that there's a number of colleges providing refunds for room and board, as the college campuses were closed, that the colleges and universities are providing refunds, for basically not being on campus for the remainder of the year. And previously, the 529 fund or refunds were allowed 60 days to get recontributed back into 529 plans, or it would incur a non-qualified distribution of 10% penalty, and then potential state tax, implications as well. And that has been housed within the IRS publication 970 for quite a while. What's new and part of the more recent focus has been that the IRS 2020-23 allows refunds to go, back in the later of 60 days or July 15th, 2020. And basically, in certain date ranges that, that the difference between the, July 15th and the 60 days could actually be closer to 70, 80 days, depending on the timing of things. So obviously that's an area of focus, for the IRS, for the world right now. So it's great that the legislation, but also the the flexibility was passed fairly soon. But I think there's a couple different ways to that advisors, as parents, as product buyers can really solve that issue. Like one is that the room and board at parents' home is considered a qualified expense and allowed for by their IRS, and you could double check that at the IRS publication 970. Another thing is really as everything as many of the coursework is now being completed digitally online, by webinars and webcasts and, like Zoom calls and all those things. And, but that is just a good point and reminder that technology, computers, laptops, peripherals, thinking about printers, like Mary asked me to print something. I didn't have the printer, but to the extent that all these students now can use the printers for qualified expenses, for college students, or, even like large, like dual monitors, mouses, keyboards, external hard drives, for the coursework. There's a number of different ways. And definitely kudos to Virginia 529 for releasing the article, Can I Put My College Refund Back into My 529 Plan? So there's, it's great to see the product providers, start to message around this 529 refunds, like prior capabilities, but also the new capabilities as well. And we do expect more and more product providers to, message that out to their users and target users. Another area of conversation really kind of pivots around the topic of homeschooling. When the Secure Act, was initially drafted, it did include the apprenticeships, as we covered, student loan repayments, which we covered. But one piece that was excluded, that was originally included, was the K through 12 expenses for tuition only, to include related expenses. So really, pivots around homeschooling and things of that nature. But one thing that has been interesting is that that there's been more recent legislation and a re-push to that homeschooling expenses being a qualified expense, and for for the majority of America, a lot of people are doing homeschooling expenses, and so to the extent that there's a new positioning around that what was previously like excluded in the House version of the K through 12 homeschooling expenses. There's been new initiative, new focus, new push. As of the April 15th, there was on that date, there was 13 congressional members had introduced it, and we'll be tracking it very closely. But lo and behold, their request in the by the congressional members was to include it in a future COVID-19 relief bill. Things are moving very fast, so we always just tried our best to present perhaps on last month's webinar, saying like here's the primer, here's the core piece. And today we're trying to talk more about here's what's been happening more recently, but also just have things to talk about in the pipeline in terms of, here's where we're potentially going based on past bills that were introduced and not passed, but also, what is potentially happening in the pipeline. Sometimes it lines up and things continue to, get introduced and focused in that way. And by way of quick comment, there's been a continued, on the topic of apprenticeships, there's been continued focus on different 529 bills related to the employer channel. So we do expect there to be continued focus and potential bills around 529s within the employer channel. But we also think about the that homeschooling piece as well could be an area of interest and focus. And for someone that's homeschooling two people right now, it's definitely front and center of I know myself as well. So we'll see where that kind of lands. Other topics of interest and outlook. There's been FAFSA impact removal. I think last month we talked about how 529s impact the FAFSA calculation by 5.64% versus 20% in say the parent's money market account. Again, that's at 5.64% is negligible because most of that money that the parents don't receive, it ends up being loans anyway, and potentially not even filled on that financial aid gap anyways by the college. So it's better to save and save efficiently while one has the long-term opportunity to save. And but for many parents, that gap for even the fact that it's 5.64% that they potentially might not receive in student loans, or not receive at all is a hurdle to them. So to the extent that that FAFSA impact can be removed, and all the better. And that's an area of focus around the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. It's on a bit of a pause. We'll see when that does move, but we're definitely focused as an industry to making sure that item is removed, just to remove the hurdles and the barriers to family saving and saving efficiently. Two other points that is of interest and focus is the ability to roll over 529s to Roth IRAs. That's very there's a lot of high demand, and especially within the for financial advisors. The feedback to date has that added layer of flexibility and usage. Could be of much value to the advisor community. So it is something that is on the board, and we'll be tracking that. Just because it is an area of interest, for the users. Another is just providing more flexibility around that 401k to 529s, and one could sort of map out that the more recent legislation remove the penalties for 401k withdrawals up to 100,000. That now the parents that are in a cash crunch right now to save and pay for college, that we could see that roadmap for that capability to roll over 401k assets to 529s, and we'll see where that one lands as well. And I think that the and this is another survey data points around how much impact does that have. And I think lo and behold, there's were that to pass, 33% of non-savers would be very likely to start saving with a 529 plan. And of course, we would also kind of benchmark or think about the 50% of non-529 savers very likely to open up a 529 plan if passed. And even those that are using a 529 plan, they find it very helpful, of course. So it's a large focus for the industry. I think it takes down one of the top three, if not the top two, hurdles for parents not willing to save. It's like, oh, my child would get a scholarship, and we've seen statistics that far less than 2% of high school graduates get a full ride. So that scholarship storyboard, it really doesn't cut it, and to the extent that we're just helping to just incentivize people to save and save efficiently. The last question on Jerome Powell's presentation last night did talk around the topic of incentives for people to save. I think the question came from Marketplace, but it was great to see the question, the focus around the saving side of the equation. And of course, there's so much focus around the student loan debt, but to the extent that we can help solve the debt issue by people saving and getting ahead of that curve, all the better for everyone. So as a quick recap, we provided industry announcements. We talked about data and research updates. We did provide the 529 enable legislative update. As a quick side note, we have the May 29th, 2020 webinar. And we also set the date for June, and we'll be continuing along, on course for closing out the month by summarizing all the activity for the month. And again, thank you so much for the support in attending today. Feedback appreciated. If you want anything highlighted in the upcoming months, please feel to drop me an email. And disclosure page here, and questions and answers. And I will drop off the video so we can help answer the question, so I can focus on answering the questions. But in the meantime, Mary, are you here?
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. So we do have some time left for questions, and we're going to go through a couple that have come in already. If you haven't submitted your questions yet, please take a moment now to submit them in the Zoom question box, and we'll try our best to get through all of them. But Paul, the first one came through. What are firms seeing regarding recontributions given the recent COVID-19 impacts to the spring and fall semesters? So far, we see most schools are holding on to tuition as a credit rather than issuing refunds.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for asking. But like by and large, it does seem that about 5%, on average or across the industry of the gross contributions is really recontributions, money coming back into the account we'll obviously continue to track it, but it's an area of focus. There's a lot of questions going to the call center, so thinking about that activity, from that perspective, that's important. But I think a lot of the recontribution questions and issues, really pivot around those that are senior year in college. What can they do, and whether that be to use the money to be saved at home, for room and board, for the peripherals, or for graduate school, for a future beneficiary, for another family member. There's a lot of different ways to use those assets, and we'll continue to track. But in the meantime, it's more of a senior in college type of question.
Thanks, Paul. Another question that came through: what are the employer advantages you mentioned that are available in I think it was 8 states that you were talking about?
Yep. So a deeper dive is and each state is slightly different in how they roll it out. But lo and behold, it's typically when an employer would help an employee pay for student loan repayments, that would be a taxable type of activity. But for some, it's really a tax credit or tax deduction. It's great to see how the states are managing it for a couple different from a couple different perspectives. But lo and behold, the bigger picture would be that that there are more and more states providing state tax incentives for the employers or employees to really incentivize the employers to get more involved in the college financial planning process.
And then, Paul, are we seeing state and employer incentives for contributions to ABLE accounts?
Definitely, and that's an area of focus. It's a very important piece that states do get involved in terms of expanding their state tax incentives, whether it be a state tax deduction or credit to on the ABLE side to really help ABLE grow. What's interesting is that a lot for the legislation for the 32 states that have a tax deduction or credit on 529 savings plans, a lot of that hasn't been mapped over yet to ABLE. We do expect that there to be continued expansion and focus, to at least provide on par treatment between 529 and ABLE. But we'll be continuing to track that one, and it's an important initiative. And to some extent, there's ABLE being still being a fairly new product that we do expect to continue to grow and flourish. That the conversation will naturally get to there. To the extent that the federal legislation was put in place, there's more and more state legislation put in place, and the product is continue to be refined and fine-tuned with the great legislative updates. And what we'd expect is that marketing and distribution to really accelerate, and that's how we've been seeing that those accounts grow from, let's just say 7,000 year one to 13 to 20 to now 23. So we expect that broadening to that interest to grow, and it's an important initiative. And thank you for asking the question.
Thanks, Paul. Another question: what is the outlook for 529 and ABLE from a legislative perspective?
Yep, I think they're both. The outlook is great for on for 529s and ABLE. On the 529 side, we've seen continued focus and expansion. On the 529 side, we touched upon the expansion to the homeschooling piece and like the financial aid piece and the potential for allowing for better rollovers from product to product, from say 529s over to IRAs or 401ks to 401ks to 529s. We would expect that to continue. And I think on the ABLE side as well, obviously we saw 529s be allowed to roll over to ABLE, and we would expect perhaps there to be further expansion as well for 401ks and IRAs to ABLE. And then for the ABLE side as well, I guess there's the federal side, and then there's the state side. On the state side, we would expect to see the expansion on the on the federal side, we would expect to see continued expansion and focus on that side, and whether it be the Age Adjustment Act or several other like employer pieces and area of focus, the like Medicare clawback pieces, and there's a few other. On the state side, there's the state tax incentives, and the clawback provisions, but also like a lot of just area for there to be like hurdles taken down, and also incentives to be increased to really just help people to save and save efficiently for 529 enabled accounts. And as I don't think we have any other questions, Mary, but I did want to say it's thank you so much for the opportunity to present today, to answer the questions. As questions crop up, please feel free to reach on out. The legislation, broadly speaking, that the legislation continues to provide opportunity for growth for the industry and to get people to save and save efficiently. Any last questions, Angelina or Mary, or final closing?
Yeah, it looks like we have one more if we have a little bit of time to answer this. So for those adopters of 529 college savings plans for their children without disabilities, these are individuals who clearly see the benefit of 529s. Are 529 ABLE plans being presented to these individuals? This could benefit either their own children or family members with disabilities, or these adopters could be useful in sharing this information with others who may benefit from an ABLE account.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I know. I guess there's two different ways to present and think about it. But for the when we think about overall family saving and paying for college, whether that be for the for financial advisors or employers or anything, it's it's great to see that one can save whether for 529 and ABLE, and to know that there's the flexibility to roll over those assets from 529 to ABLE, and there's a lot of the language being held on firms websites for those providers and states that do float in both 529 and ABLE. It's been great to see a lot of them presented side by side, very similar to 529 and savings plans and 529 prepaid plans. But it's I think there's still opportunity for better integration for both those that do oversee both products, or those perhaps those that don't, right? So there's I think that's a particular area of opportunity for growth, to really see 529 and ABLE being a great savings vehicles for family and family planning overall. And of course, for a moment, I'm putting on my own hat as a parent of two little ones as well. But I think I think it's great to see the momentum for both products, and I just think there's so much opportunity for them to work together and grow together, and the opportunity is there, and I think we'll get there. It'll just take more conversations, more working together, more the collaboration at both the institutional, state, end user perspective, but also the outreach as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Paul. And I think we might be at our time limit for today, but we really appreciate all the questions, and we will follow up directly with any other questions that came through that we did not get to. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Please, expect a follow-up email with a link to this webinar recording and contact information for our 529 and ABLE team if you'd like to review anything covered today or have any additional questions. That concludes. Thank you for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day.